a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Naomi Watts. Naomi Ellen Watts is an English actress and film producer. She made her screen debut in the Australian drama film For Love Alone and then appeared in the Australian television series Hey Dad, Brides of Christ, Home and Away and the coming-of-age comedy drama film Flirting. After moving to the United States, Watts appeared in films including Tank Girl, Children of the Corn 4, The Gathering and Dangerous Beauty, and had the lead role in the television series Sleepwalkers. After years as a struggling actress, Watts came to attention in David Lynch's psychological thriller Mulholland Drive. The following year, she enjoyed box office success with her role as Rachel Keller in The Ring, the remake of a successful Japanese horror film. She then received nominations at the Academy Awards and the Screen Actors Guild Awards in the Best Actress categories for her portrayal of Cristina Peck in Alejandro González Iñárritu's neo-noir 21 grams. Her subsequent films include David O. Russell's comedy I Heart Huckabees, King Kong, a remake of the 1933 film of the same name, the crime thriller Eastern Promises, and the Tom Tykwer-directed thriller The International. Since then, Watts has portrayed Valerie Plame Wilson in the biographical drama Fair Game and Helen Gandy in Clint Eastwood's biographical drama J. Edgar. For her leading role as Maria Bennett in the disaster film The Impossible, she received second nominations for the Academy Award and Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Actress and a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress. In 2002, Watts was included in People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People. In 2006, she became a Goodwill Ambassador for Joint United Nations Programme on HIV/AIDS, which helps to raise awareness of AIDS-related issues. She has participated in several fundraisers for the cause, and she is presented as an inaugural member of AIDS Red Ribbon Awards. Early life. Watts was born on the 28th of September 1968, in Shoreham, Kent, England. She is the daughter of Mavanawi Edwards, an antiques dealer and costume and set designer, and Peter Watts, a road manager and sound engineer who worked with Pink Floyd. Miv was born in England, but lived in Australia between the ages of 1 and 7. Watts' maternal grandfather was Welsh and her maternal grandmother was Australian. Watts' parents divorced when she was 4 years old. After the divorce, Watts and her elder brother, Ben Watts, moved several times across southeast England with their mother. Peter Watts left Pink Floyd in 1974, and he and Mavanawi were later reconciled. 2 years later, in August 1976, he was found dead in a flat in Notting Hill, of an apparent heroin overdose. Following his death, Watts' mother moved the family to Llanfor Farm in Llangefni and Llanfairpwll Gwyngal, towns on the island of Anglesey in North Wales, where they lived with Watts' maternal grandparents, Nicky and Hugh Roberts, for 3 years. During this time, Watts attended a Welsh language school, Ysgol Gyfwn Llangefni. She later said of her time in Wales, "We took Welsh lessons in a school in the middle of nowhere while everyone else was taking English. Wherever we moved, I would adapt and pick up the regional accent. It's obviously significant now, me being an actress. Anyway, there was quite a lot of sadness in my childhood, but no lack of love." In 1978, her mother remarried and Watts and her brother then moved to Suffolk, where she attended Thomas Mills High School. Watts has stated that she wanted to become an actress after seeing her mother performing on stage and from the time she watched the 1980 film Fame. In 1982, when Watts was 14, she moved to Sydney, New South Wales in Australia with her mother, brother and stepfather. Mavanawi established a career in the burgeoning film business, working as a stylist for television commercials, then turning to costume design, ultimately working for the soap opera Return to Eden. After emigrating, Watts was enrolled in acting lessons by her mother. She auditioned for numerous television advertisements, where she met and befriended actress Nicole Kidman. Watts obtained her first role in the 1986 drama film For Love Alone, based on the novel of the same name by Christina Peck, and produced by Margaret Fink. In Australia, Watts attended Mosman High School and North Sydney Girls High School. She failed to graduate from school, afterwards working as a paper girl, a negative cutter and managing a delicacies store in Sydney's affluent North Shore. She decided to become a model when she was 18. She signed with a models agency that sent her to Japan, but after several failed auditions, she returned to Sydney. There, she was hired to work in advertising for a department store that exposed her to the attention of Follow Me, a magazine which hired her as an assistant fashion editor. A casual invitation to participate in a drama workshop inspired Watts to quit her job and to pursue her acting ambitions. Regarding her nationality, Watts has stated, "I consider myself British and have very happy memories of the UK. I spent the first 14 years of my life in England and Wales and never wanted to leave. When I was in Australia I went back to England a lot." She also has expressed her ties to Australia, declaring, "I consider myself very connected to Australia. In fact, when people say where is home, I say Australia, because those are my most powerful memories." 1986-2000, early work and struggling career. Watts' career began in television, where she made brief appearances in commercials. The 1986 film For Love Alone, set in the 1930s and based on Christina Stead's 1945 best-selling novel of the same name, marked her debut in film. She then appeared in 2 episodes of the 4th season of the Australian sitcom Hey Dad. In 1990, after a 5-year absence from films, Watts met director John Digan during the 1989 premiere of her friend Nicole Kidman's film Dead Calm, and he invited her to take a supporting role in his 1991 indie film Flirting. The film received critical acclaim and was featured on Roger Ebert's list of the 10 best films of 1992. Also in 1991, she took the part of Frances Heffernan, a girl who struggles to find friends behind the walls of a Sydney Catholic school, in the award-winning miniseries Brides of Christ, and had a recurring role in the soap opera Home and Away as the handicapped Julie Gibson. Watts was then offered a role in the drama series A Country Practice, but turned it down, not wanting to get stuck on a soap for 2 or 3 years, a decision she later called naive. Watts then took a year off to travel, visiting Los Angeles and being introduced to agents through Kidman. Encouraged, Watts decided to move to America to pursue her career further. In 1993 she had a small role in the John Goodman film Matinee, and temporarily returned to Australia to star in 3 Australian films, another of Duigan's pictures, Wide Sargasso Sea, the drama The Custodian, and had her first leading role in the film Gross Misconduct, as a student who accuses one of her teachers of raping her. Watts then moved back to America for good, but the difficulty of finding agents, producers, and directors willing to hire her during that period frustrated her initial efforts, though her financial situation never led her to taking a job out of the film industry. She experienced problems like being unable to pay the rent of her apartment and losing her medical insurance. At first, everything was fantastic and doors were open to me. But some people who I met through Nicole Kidman, who had been all over me, had difficulty remembering my name when we next met. There were a lot of promises, but nothing actually came off. I ran out of money and became quite lonely, but Nick gave me company and encouragement to carry on. She then won a supporting role in the futuristic 1995 film Tank Girl, winning the role of Jet Girl after 9 auditions. The film was met with mixed reviews and flopped at the box office, although it has gone on to become something of a cult classic. Throughout the rest of the decade, she took mostly supporting roles in films and occasionally considered leaving the business, but there were always little bites. Whenever I felt I was at the end of my rope, something would come up, something bad. But for me it was work begets work. That was my motto. In 1996, she starred alongside Joe Mantegna, Kelly Lynch and J.T. Walsh in George Hickenlooper's action thriller Persons Unknown, alongside James Earl Jones, Kevin Kilner, and Ellen Burstyn in the period drama Timepiece. In Bermuda Triangle, a TV pilot that was not picked up for a full series, where she played a former documentary filmmaker who disappears in the Bermuda Triangle, and as the lead role in Children of the Corn 4, The Gathering, in which children in a small town become possessed under the command of a wrongfully murdered child preacher. In 1997, she starred in the Australian ensemble romantic drama Under the Lighthouse Dancing starring Jack Thompson and Jacqueline Mackenzie. She also played the lead role in the short-lived television series Sleepwalkers. In 1998, she starred alongside Neil Patrick Harris and Debbie Reynolds in the TV film The Christmas Wish, played the supporting role of Julia Delez in Dangerous Beauty, and provided some voice work for Babe, Pig in the City. She said in an interview in 2012, "That really should not be on my resume. I think that was early on in the day, when I was trying to beef up my resume. I came in and did a couple days work of voiceovers, and we had to suck on helium, and then do a little mouse voice. But I was 1 in 100, so I'm sure you would never be able to identify my voice. I probably couldn't either." In 1999, she played Alice in the romantic comedy Strange Planet in the Texan student Holly Maddox in The Hunt for the Unicorn Killer, which was based on the real-life effort to capture Ira Einhorn, who was charged with Maddox's murder. In 2000, while David Lynch was expanding the rejected pilot of Mulholland Drive into a feature film, Watts starred alongside Derek Jacobi, Jack Davenport, and Ian Glenn in the BBC TV film The Wyvern Mystery, an adaptation of the novel of the same name by Sheridan Le Fanu that was broadcast in March of that year. Much of her early career is filled with near misses in casting, as she was up for significant roles in films such as 1997's The Postman and The Devil's Advocate and 2000's Meet the Parents, which eventually went to other actresses. In an interview in 2012, Watts said, "I came to New York and auditioned at least 5 times for Meet the Parents. I think the director liked me, but the studio didn't. I heard every piece of feedback you could imagine, and in this case, it was not sexy enough." Watts recalled her early career in an interview in 2002, saying, "It is a tough town. I think my spirit has taken a beating. The most painful thing has been the endless auditions. Knowing that you have something to offer, but not being able to show it, is so frustrating. As an unknown, you get treated badly. I auditioned and waited for things I did not have any belief in, but I needed the work and had to accept horrendous pieces of shit." Watts studied the Meisner technique. 2001-2002 breakthrough with Mulholland Drive. In 1999, director David Lynch began casting for his psychological thriller Mulholland Drive. He interviewed Watts after looking at her headshot, without having seen any of her previous work, and offered her the lead role. Lynch later said about his selection of Watts, "I saw someone that I felt had a tremendous talent, and I saw someone who had a beautiful soul, an intelligence, possibilities for a lot of different roles, so it was a beautiful full package." Conceived as a pilot for a television series, Lynch shot a large portion of it in February 1999, planning to keep it open-ended for a potential series. However, the pilot was rejected. Watts recalled thinking at the time, "Just my dumb luck. That I'm in the only David Lynch program that never sees the light of day." Instead, Lynch filmed an ending in October 2000, turning it into a feature film which was picked up for distribution. The film, which also starred Laura Herring and Justin Theroux, was highly acclaimed by critics and would become Watts' breakthrough. She was praised by critics, including Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian, who said, "Watts' face metamorphoses miraculously from fresh-faced beauty to a frenzied, teary scowl of ugliness," and Emmanuel Levy, who wrote, "Naomi Watts, in a brilliant performance, a young, wide-eyed, and grotesquely cheerful blonde, full of high hopes to make it big in Hollywood." The film premiered at the 2001 Cannes Film Festival and received a large number of awards and nominations, including the Best Actress Award for Watts from the National Society of Film Critics and a nomination for Best Actress from the American Film Institute. The surrealist film following the story of the aspiring actress Betty Elms, played by Watts, attracted controversy with its strong lesbian theme. Also in 2001, she starred in 2 short films, Never Date an Actress and Deli Parker, and the horror film The Shaft, director Dick Maas' remake of his 1983 film The Lift. In 2002, she starred in one of the biggest box office hits of that year, The Ring, the English-language remake of the Japanese horror film Ringu. Directed by Gore Verbinski, the film, which also starred Martin Henderson and Brian Cox, received favorable reviews and grossed around $129 million domestically. Watts portrayed Rachel Keller, a journalist investigating the strange deaths of her niece and other teenagers after watching a mysterious videotape and receiving a phone call announcing their deaths in 7 days. Her performance was praised by critics, including Paul Clinton of CNN.com, who stated that she is excellent in this leading role, which proves that her stellar performance in Mulholland Drive was not a fluke. She strikes a perfect balance between skepticism and the slow realization of the truth in regard to the deadly power of the videotape. That year, she also starred in Rabbits, a series of short films directed by David Lynch, alongside several other famous British actors in the black comedy Plots with a View, and with Tim Daly in the western The Outsider. 2003, 2007, steady success. The following year, she took the part of Julia Cook in Gregor Jordan's Australian film Ned Kelly opposite Heath Ledger, Orlando Bloom, and Geoffrey Rush, as well as starring in the Merchant Ivory film Le Divorce, portraying Roxane de Passand, a poet who is pregnant and abandoned by her husband Charles-Henri de Passand. Roxane and her sister Isabelle dispute the ownership of a painting by Georges de la Tour with the family of Charles Henry's lover. Entertainment Weekly gave the film a C rating and lamented Watts' performance. "I'm disappointed to report that Hudson and Watts have no chemistry as sisters, perhaps because Watts never seems like the expatriate artiste she's supposed to be playing." Conversely, her performance opposite Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro in director Alejandro González Iñárritu's 2003 drama 21 Grams earned Watts an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress later that year. In the story, told in a non-linear manner, she portrayed Cristina Peck, a grief-stricken woman living a suburban life after the killing of her husband and 2 children by Jack Jordan, who became involved in a relationship with the critically ill academic mathematician Paul Rivers. She has said of the nomination, "It's far beyond what I ever dreamed, for that would have been too far-fetched." She also was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Female Actor in a Leading Role, among other nominations. The New York Times praised her, because Ms. Watts reinvents herself with each performance. "It's easy to forget how brilliant she is. She has a boldness that comes from a lack of overemphasis, something actresses sometimes do to keep up with Mr. Pennsylvania." The San Francisco Chronicle wrote, "Watts is riveting, but she's much better in scenes of extreme emotion than in those requiring subtlety." She then starred alongside Mark Ruffalo in the 2004 independent film We Don't Live Here Anymore, a drama based on the short stories We Don't Live Here Anymore and Adultery by Andre Dubus, which depicts the crisis of 2 married couples. She reunited with Sean Penn in The Assassination of Richard Nixon, which was set in 1974. She played Marie Anderson Bick, the wife of the would-be presidential assassin Samuel Bick. In 2004, she teamed up with Jude Law and Dustin Hoffman in David O. Russell's ensemble comedy I Heart Huckabees. Watts next starred and co-produced with director/screenwriter Scott Coffey her film, the semi-autobiographical drama Ellie Parker, which depicted the struggle of an Australian actress in Hollywood. The film began as a short film that was screened at the Sundance Film Festival in 2001 and was expanded into a feature-length production over the next 4 years. Film critic Roger Ebert praised Watts' performance. "The character is played by Watts with courage, fearless observation and a gift for timing that is so uncanny it can make points all by itself." Watts returned in the lead role in the sequel to The Ring, The Ring 2. The film received several negative reviews, but was a major success at the box office, with an over $161 million worldwide gross, and Watts was once again praised for her performance. Her third film that year was Mark Forster's psychological thriller Stay. Written by David Benioff, it also starred Ewan McGregor, Ryan Gosling and Bob Hoskins. Watts then starred in the 2005 remake of King Kong as Ann Darrow. Watts was the first choice for the role, portrayed by Fay Wray in the original film, with no other actors considered. In preparation for her role, Watts met with Wray, who was to make a cameo appearance and say the final line of dialogue, but she died during pre-production at the age of 96. King Kong proved to be Watts' most commercially successful film yet. Helmed by the Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson, the film won high praise and grossed $550 million worldwide. The Seattle Post-Intelligencer praised her performance. The third act becomes a star-crossed Beauty and the Beast parable, far more operatic and tragic than anything the original filmmakers could have imagined. Exquisitely pantomimed by Watts with a poignancy and passion that rates Oscar consideration. Her next film was The Painted Veil with Edward Norton and Liev Schreiber. Watts played Kitty Garstin, the daughter of a lawyer, who marries Walter Fane for his reputation as a physician and bacteriologist. The film centers on the relationship of the couple at the time they moved to China, where Fane is stationed to study infectious diseases. Comparing her portrayal with Greta Garbo's in the original movie. The San Francisco Chronicle wrote, Watts makes the role work on her own terms. Her Kitty is more desperate, more foolish, more miserable and more driven. And her spiritual journey is greater. Watts also provided the voice of a small role, Susie Rabbit, in David Lynch's psychological thriller Inland Empire. That year, she was announced as the new face of the jewelers David Yurman, and completed a photoshoot which was featured in the 2007 Pirelli calendar. She later appeared in David Cronenberg's crime thriller Eastern Promises with Viggo Mortensen, which premiered at the 2007 Toronto International Film Festival, to critical acclaim. As the movie, Watts also generated positive feedback among critics. Slate magazine remarked in its review that she brings a wounded radiance to the over-curious midwife Anna. Though it's a bit of a one-note role, it's note she's long specialized in a kind of flustered moral aggrievement. Eastern Promises grossed $56 million worldwide. She appeared with Tim Roth in Michael Hanek's Funny Games, a remake of Hanek's 1997 film of the same name that opened at the London Film Festival. The director said that he agreed to make the film on condition that he be allowed to cast Watts, according to UK's The Daily Telegraph. In the picture, she portrayed Anne Farber, who with her husband and son are held hostage by a pair of sociopathic teenagers. Watts also served as a producer, as this charge was for her one way to spice up the deal and be involved in all the creative decisions. The movie generated mixed reviews and received a limited theatrical release in the United States, grossing $7 million on a $15 million budget. Newsweek felt that Watts hurls herself into her physically demanding role with heroic conviction. David Stratton, from At the Movies, concluded that she was, as usual, really fine. However, New York Daily News criticized her part for being half-naked throughout most of her appearance, considering that it was an awfully strange way to make a righteous point about exploitation. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like